Welcome to photosNtravel, a show that introduces you to fascinating places around the world. Please welcome our host and tour guide, Jonathan Van Bilsen.
Hello and welcome to this episode of photosNtravel, where we bring the world to your doorstep. Today we're going to take a trek through history with a visit to historic San Antonio in Texas. And then we'll hop next door and explore New Orleans and the mighty Mississippi. We'll learn all about Davy Crockett and the Alamo, the plantations of the South. And we'll visit Mardi Gras and take a trip along the largest river in the U.S. We'll begin exploring these wonderful gems right after these messages.
At Voss, your independent grocer, it's all about hometown living and shopping. Owned and operated by Terry and Christine Voss, their newly renovated Port Perry store carries many local items to support our town and its residents.
Pet Value has a fleet of services to help you and your pets to live their very best lives. Visit Pet Value in Port Perry to discover a world of expertise, friendly staff, and everything you need for your pets. Pet Value, your pet, your store.
Welcome back. We're starting our adventure today in San Antonio, a city that dates back to the historic start of Texas and the cowboy era. I stayed at the Menger Hotel, built in 1858 by German immigrant William Menger, as an expansion of his boarding house adjacent to his brewery. Immediately successful, a 40-room extension was started before the initial building was even complete, only 23 years after the fall of the Alamo next door. By the 1870s, the Menger was the best-known hotel in the Southwest. It was also San Antonio's most popular hotel throughout the 19th century. Notable guests have included Robert E. Lee, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and Mae West. The hotel has hosted Theodore Roosevelt at least 3 times, most notably in 1898, when he spent most of his time in the bar to recruit the Rough Riders, who fought in Cuba in the Spanish-American War. The Menger holds the unofficial title of the most haunted hotel in Texas. It is now home to 32 different spirits, including most notable Sally White, a maid who worked at the Menger and was murdered by her husband. Because the hotel covered the cost of her funeral, Sally roams the halls, tidying up as a thank you for the kindness shown. What I did not know was the place where she was murdered was directly outside my room. San Antonio seems to have more spirits roaming the halls of buildings than most other cities, so a ghost tour seemed in order. Ripley's Believe It or Not was as good a place to start as any, as they claim an actual spirit resides there. Of course, I don't believe in ghosts, so the noises I kept hearing were easily explained, I think. This is the San Fernando Cathedral, which we'll explore in detail a little later on. It is the oldest church in the Lone Star State, so it only makes sense that it might be one of the most haunted locations in all San Antonio. It is also the burying place of Davy Crockett, whose spirit can often be seen wandering aimlessly. It is said his face is sometimes visible on the wall beside the door. In the early 1900s, when the Spanish governor's palace, was home to a variety of businesses, reports of paranormal activity have been attached to the property. Guests of the museum have commented that they have felt incredibly cold upon entering the bedroom that a young girl is said to haunt. Quite often her spirit screams at visitors. Here we have the Holiday Inn, which was formerly the Bexar County Jail, where the last public hanging took place. Room 305 was the hanging room, and many guests have spent sleepless nights in that bedchamber. It was an extremely interesting night, and I was glad to return to my hotel. I made my way to the second floor, and after securing my door, I was still fairly certain that ghosts don't really exist. Or do they? One of San Antonio's best tourist attractions is the Riverwalk, which is a network of walkways lined with bars and restaurants along the banks of the San Antonio River, one story beneath the streets of the city. The Riverwalk is an important part of the city's urban fabric and a tourist attraction in its own right. Regular barges transport visitors along the river, which was diverted in 1921 after a disastrous flood which claimed 50 lives. There was much discussion about the project, and work finally began under the watch of Mayor Jack White. He raised enough funds to begin a 4-kilometer project in 1938. Through the following decades, the network has been improved and extended. The major extension of the Riverwalk was constructed for the World's Fair in 1968. The expansion extended the Riverwalk beyond its natural banks to the new convention center. Major expansion began in 1988 when the Hilton was built, the first of many downtown hotels that leveraged their slice of urban riverfront. That year, an extension created a lagoon at the new River Center Mall. Many national chain restaurants have flourished, now taking up about a third of the commercial space. Talks are underway at City Hall about limiting their existence on the Riverwalk and keeping it distinctively local. In May of 2007, the Riverwalk was extended by several kilometers to stretch from downtown to the city's south side. This addition is notable for its emphasis on ecological control and trail improvements to support hiking and biking. In the mid-19th century, a great many Germans had immigrated to Texas and began to settle in this area. It became known as Sauerkraut Bend to the rest of San Antonio. The area developed into an idyllic neighborhood of large, impressive houses designed in Greek, Victorian, and Italian style, with even one designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. The main street of this neighborhood was given the name King William in honor of King William I, the King of Prussia in the 1870s. During World War I, when America was at war with Germany, the name was changed to Pershing Avenue. A few years after the war ended, the King William name was restored. An interest in preservation of the area was initiated, and it slowly became a fashionable and desirable place to live. In 1968, the King William neighborhood became San Antonio's first designated historic district. Several of the mansions need repair, but many have been restored and are valued between $600,000 and $1 million US. Mission Concepcion was established in 1716 and was originally meant to be a base for converting the local Hasinai people to Catholicism. The Hasinai Confederacy was a large group of Caddo-speaking Native Americans who occupied the territory in eastern Texas. The mission was moved in 1731 to San Antonio and was founded by the Franciscan friars. This is the best preserved of the Texas missions, with very little restoration having taken place. The Battle of Concepcion was fought on this site in 1835 between Mexican troops and Texas insurgents led by James Bowie. The 30-minute battle is described as the first major engagement of the Texas Revolution. Mission Concepcion is the oldest unrestored stone church in America. The mission was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1970 and is part of San Antonio Mission's National Historic Park. When originally built, Mission Concepcion had brightly painted frescoes decorating both the exterior and interior of the building. Traces of the frescoes still exist on the weathered facade. Experts restored some of the artwork on the interior ceilings and walls of the convent in 1988. Catholic Mass is still held every Sunday, and there are many weddings celebrated at the mission. Without question, the most famous site in San Antonio is the Alamo Mission, where 180 Texans and mercenaries fought against Mexico for freedom. Colonel James Bowie, under the command of Sam Houston, was sent to remove the artillery from the Alamo and destroy the complex. Bowie was unable to transport the armaments since the Alamo garrison lacked the necessary draft animals. Bowie argued that the salvation of Texas depends on keeping Bexar, now San Antonio, out of the hands of the enemy. Bowie, in a letter, said, "We have come to the solemn resolution that we will rather die in these ditches than give up to the enemy." He also asked for men, money, rifles, and cannon powder, but very few reinforcements were authorized. Cavalry officer William B. Travis arrived with 30 men, and 5 days later, a small group of volunteers arrived, including the famous frontiersman Davy Crockett. The Battle of the Alamo in 1836 was a pivotal event in the Texas Revolution. Following a 13-day siege, Mexican troops under the command of Santa Anna launched an assault on the Alamo Mission. All of the Texan defenders were killed as 1,500 Mexicans marched into San Antonio in an effort to retake Texas, which belonged to Mexico. For the next 10 days, the two armies engaged in several skirmishes. Unfortunately, the garrison could not withstand an attack by such a large force. Travis wrote multiple letters to Sam Houston, who was less than 100 kilometers away. He pleaded for more men and supplies, but Houston could not spare the number of men necessary to mount a successful defense, and fewer than 100 reinforcements arrived. The Alamo Mission is now a tourist site, with most of its casualties buried beneath the road in front. A fitting memory to a tragic battle, which makes the Alamo Mission well worth the visit. My final stop in beautiful San Antonio was the famous Buckhorn Saloon, an establishment frequented by Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders. The Buckhorn Saloon and Museum began as a private collection of Albert Friedrich in 1881. Friedrich amassed his collection of horns from his own hunting trips and from other hunters and trappers. In its early years, anyone could swap food or a drink if you brought antlers or horns of an animal to be displayed. The collection became known as the Buckhorn Hall of Horns. The Texas Ranger Museum in the Buckhorn features authentic Texas Ranger artifacts, including guns, badges, photographs, and much more. The museum also features Ranger Town, which is a recreation of San Antonio at the turn of the century, and includes a replica of a saloon, a jail cell, a blacksmith shop, and a reproduction of the 1934 Ford V8, which was the famous Bonnie and Clyde getaway car. There is also a detailed carving of the Tree of Life, with very fine attention paid to intricacies depicting life during cowboy times. Although most of the memorabilia is from the Old West, Friedrich was not particular as to the origin of his artifacts and would accept almost every offering made. The Buckhorn Museum features wildlife from all over the world, including fish from the 7 seas, animals from every continent, and strange animal oddities. The exhibit halls are comprised of over 520 species of wildlife, many of which are record holders today. For over 131 years, the Buckhorn Saloon has been known as a gathering place for good conversation, great food, and spectacular exhibits. Today, the saloon houses a cafe, a gift shop, a shooting gallery, and 2 museums. Open until 11 p.m., it is a great place to enjoy a fine meal and some interesting conversation, and perhaps even meet a cowboy. San Antonio is an amazing city. The Riverwalk was spectacular, and spending time at the Alamo was quite a history lesson. When we return, we'll head a little bit to the east and explore one of the world's most interesting and wildest cities. We'll be right back after these messages.
Not all Canadians have the time nor desire to manage their finances, and often that responsibility is up to financial professionals. Our goal is to help Canadian families achieve a happy and successful financial future. Visit us, the McClellan Financial Group of Asante Capital Management.
Top care with top stylists. Book your next hair appointment with Port Perry's award-winning hair salon, Rosario Greco Styles. The hair experience you deserve. Book today. Call 905-985-0099.
Organizing an event, promoting your business, or just need to get noticed? At PP Print, our sale flags, lawn signs, and car branding will get you the attention you need. PP Print, more than just printing.
As I mentioned in this segment, we're going to visit New Orleans with its great food, excellent music, and of course, Mardi Gras. New Orleans, with a population of 400,000, is a bustling city with a huge tourist trade. It is world-renowned for its distinct music, Creole cuisine, unique dialects, and its annual celebration and festivals, most notably Mardi Gras. The historic heart of the city is the French Quarter, known for its French and Spanish Creole architecture and vibrant nightlife along Bourbon Street. The city has been described as the most unique in the United States, owing in large part to its cross-cultural and multilingual heritage. Additionally, New Orleans has increasingly been known as Hollywood South because of its prominent role in the film industry and pop culture. New Orleans is a magnet for artists such as painters, sculptors, weavers, and ceramics. You can shop their works on Julia Street in the Warehouse District or Royal Street in the French Quarter. Art markets can be found all throughout New Orleans, from the fence surrounding Jackson Square to the co-op markets along Decatur Street. Sculptures and various forms of art are found throughout the entire city. New Orleans is a sports town, and a stadium known as the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, seen here, is home to the New Orleans Saints and has been since 1975. The complex holds up to 78,000 people. The French Quarter is the city's historic heart, famous for its vibrant nightlife and colorful buildings with cast-iron balconies. Crowd-pleasing Bourbon Street features jazz clubs, Cajun eateries, and reverberating bars serving potent cocktails. Quieter streets lead to the French Market, with gourmet food and local crafts where shoppers can find everything from souvenirs to groceries to housewares. Since 1791, the historic French Market has remained an enduring symbol of pride and progress for the people of New Orleans. In over 200 years of existence, the market has been built, destroyed, and rebuilt many times over. But what remains unchanged is the market's central spirit of commerce, community, and culture that is irresistible to visitors from near and far. New Orleans prides itself on various distinctive housing styles. The oldest are the Creole cottages, which date back from 1790 to 1850. They're single-story homes with steeply pitched roofs and front porches that almost touch the street. They're a distinct blend of Caribbean and French-Canadian design. American townhouses date back to the 1820s and are found in the Central Business District and Lower Garden District, which we'll explore a little later on. These narrow brick or stucco three-story structures feature asymmetric windows and iron balconies on the second or third floors. Another style of buildings, quite common in the French Quarter, are the Creole townhouses, which date back to the late 1700s. Creole townhouses often have shops below and homes above, brick or stucco exteriors, and arched windows. Built after the Great Fires of 1788 and 1794, these 2 to 4 story structures have a strong Spanish influence in the details. Jackson Square is a New Orleans landmark, with the steeples of St. Louis Cathedral visible from almost anywhere. The statue of Andrew Jackson boldly stands in the front courtyard and is a remembrance of the 1815 Battle of New Orleans in commemorating the victorious General Jackson. During the first half of the 19th century, this former military plaza was renamed Jackson Square. Today it is filled with tourists and musicians. The Cathedral Basilica of St. Louis, King of France, was built in 1850. It is the oldest cathedral in continuous use throughout the United States. And it's dedicated to King Louis IX of France, who was also known as St. Louis. When everyone thinks of New Orleans, the first thing that comes to mind is, of course, Mardi Gras. This fun-filled carnival celebration leads up to the last day of Lent on the Catholic calendar. It is a time for partying before 40 days of fasting begins. People throw each other strands of beads or other trinkets, including coconuts, based on 150-year traditions. On March 2nd in 1699, French-Canadian explorer Jean-Baptiste de Bienville arrived at a plot of ground 100 kilometers or 60 miles directly south of New Orleans. He named it Pointe de Mardi Gras, and his men realized immediately it was the eve of the festive holiday. In 1703, the tiny settlement celebrated Louisiana's first Mardi Gras. By the 1730s, Mardi Gras was celebrated openly in New Orleans, but not with the parades we know today. In the early 1740s, the governor established elegant society balls, which became the model for the New Orleans Mardi Gras balls of today. The earliest reference to Carnival appears in 1781. People go all out when it comes to decorating their homes by putting giant masks, streamers, and beads on balconies and porches. The festivities run all night as well as all day, and a special provision has been made to allow people to conceal their faces by wearing masks during Mardi Gras. It's the only time of year they're allowed to do so. One of the key reasons New Orleans exists is the mighty Mississippi River Delta, which lies 100 kilometers or 65 miles south of the city. Mark Twain said that the Mississippi River was a wonderful book with a new story to tell each and every day. Mississippi, a Chippewa Native American word that means large river, is the life force that has shaped New Orleans' history forever. The Mississippi River runs through or along 10 states, starting in Minnesota. It is the largest drainage basin in America and drains about 60% of the country's rivers. The main feeds come from the Missouri, the Arkansas, and the Ohio rivers, making this the longest river in North America, with a total length of over 6,000 kilometers or 4,000 miles. The Mississippi is the fourth longest river in the world, surpassed by the Nile, the Amazon, and the Yangtze, the latter being only 30 kilometers longer. Passing the levees gives you an example of just how low this area is and how easily flooding can occur. The Delta is home to massive amounts of wildlife. Over the last 3 centuries, the Delta has continuously collapsed due to human alterations of the river system. In the 18th century, the river was the primary western boundary of the young United States. And since the country's expansion westward, the Mississippi River has been widely considered a convenient dividing line between the Midwestern, Eastern, and Southern states and the western part of the country. The first thing you see when you enter the grounds is the lane of mighty oak trees, twice as wide as they are tall. In a double row, the mere 28 trees create an enchanted forest. They were planted in the early 1700s by an unknown French settler who placed the 28 seedlings in 2 evenly spaced rows from his modest house down to the river. The house is a classic antebellum mansion in a white Greek Revival style, complete with a wide veranda. Antebellum means pre-war and refers to houses in the Deep South built prior to the American Civil War. Oak Alley, originally called Bon Séjour, was built as a sugar cane plantation designed by the same architect behind the New Orleans famous French Market. The mansion was built entirely by slave labor over 2 years and was completed in 1837. The architect did not take the temperatures into account when he was designing the house, as it was incredibly warm even in winter, so verandas had to be added for a cooling effect. Even with that, the 3rd floor reached temperatures of 50 degrees or 120 degrees Fahrenheit during summer. Naturally, it could only be used for storage. As opposed to the Laura plantation, business and family life at Oak Alley were kept completely separate. That probably goes a long way to explain why the plantation failed financially. An attempt was made to bring it out of the red after the Civil War. However, without the use of slaves, it was not financially feasible.
What a fantastic trip this was, visiting historic San Antonio and learning all about the Alamo, and then exploring the Mississippi and New Orleans with all its bling. Oak Alley Plantation was incredible and a great end to this adventure. For Photos and Travel, I'm Jonathan Van Bilsen. It's been my pleasure to be your tour guide today, and I look forward to our next adventure. If you enjoyed this program, please click the subscribe button and you'll never miss an episode.
At thestandardnewspaper.ca, we try to spread the good news. Even in tough times, we accept the challenge of keeping you informed. So from local contests to local happenings, let's show our support for all those who keep our communities strong.
Want to know what's happening in Skugog? News and lifestyle, changes in business, and all the entertainment information you'll ever need. Plus, each edition has a new Photos and Travel article. Look for your next copy in your mailbox.